So I'm in the product marketing organization at Cisco. I lead up the Unified Computing System product marketing team. And I'm joined by Song To from our product management organization. And when we talk about unified computing at Cisco, it spans not just the systems that we've developed at the infrastructure layer, but also a very comprehensive suite of software that goes after infrastructure automation. So you heard Joe talk a little bit about how that's manifesting itself on the networking side of the house. Today we're going to talk about Enterprise Cloud Suite, which is where we're really pulling the whole enchilada together, right? So the networking, storage with our partners, really what we call UCS integrated infrastructure, which is composed of our servers, partner storage, Nexus from the networking side, both physical, virtual, and really automation of all that to create the hybrid-ready private cloud. So everything I'm going to show you here in this next, what do we got, 40 minutes, something like that, is embargoed until Wednesday. So this is part of the larger Cisco One announcement that's going to go out at 8 a.m. Central on Wednesday. So if you guys could kind of honor that, I'd appreciate it. So I'll start really big and zoom in, and I'm really going to only go for about 5-10 minutes, and I want to give Song the balance of the time to really kind of sketch out some of the cool things we're doing with our stack builder and some of the other components that are kind of more interesting. But from a strategy perspective, why is Cisco doing this? We're really kind of, with our customers, seeing a fragmentation of the traditional data center. So sort of some of the topics that have been talked about this morning, the data center as we know it is really starting to disintegrate or splinter in a sense. And a lot of it's being driven by, kind of a multitude of factors, right? So one is we're seeing an increased amount of demand for compute far beyond the walls of the traditional data center. So that's introducing a lot of complexity for customers, and that's being driven by all the things that are going on out at the edge. So we have this term that we've coined called edge scale computing, and that really contemplates the traditional branch office that you might see, but also a lot of things that we're seeing associated with the Internet of Things. So connected devices, smart cities, manufacturing, energy industries. There's so much compute, retail, going on out beyond the wall of the data center that customers need to be able to take data center class computing, put it out there, and manage it. So that's one factor. The other thing that we're seeing is just really some fundamental shifts, or almost the pendulum coming back in many ways in terms of architecture itself for the applications. So if you think about where we've been going over the last maybe 10, 15 years with server technology, with virtualization technology, the ethos has been to build big, heavy 2- and 4-socket Xeon machines, put a hypervisor on them, carve them up, right, and load it up as best you can. But scale-out applications that you're all familiar with, that have existed in HPC and other types of environments, a lot of things that were developed natively for cloud that are scale-out, those are increasingly coming in to the mainstream IT environment. So customers now have to be able to take care of this computing going on at the edge. In their core data center, they have to be able to still maintain those very brittle applications with very available scale-up hardware. And they also need to be able to attend to these scale-out applications where the hardware can be brittle because all the availability is in the software, right? So all these things coming together mean that our customers are having trouble kind of getting to a common operating environment. If there were unicorns and rainbows on the slide, it's this stuff here, right? And this is really what we're developing all our technology to go after, which is trying to help customers get to this uniform operating model across all of those different environments, but also bridge from their private cloud out to the public cloud, right? And that's really where Enterprise Cloud Suite comes in. And like any important journey in life, it often comes from within, right, or starts within. This is some data that we got, and I think it's very intuitive. This is out of Forrester, but if you're a small 12-person law firm, public cloud makes a ton of sense. But once you get north of 20 or so employees into that mid-size and certainly in the enterprise and global, private cloud is where all the action is for a lot of reasons that I think you guys are probably familiar with, right? The economics, people use the cloud analogy of the car, rent, buy, lease, right? So the economics of cloud tend to favor private cloud for your run rate type of loads, which is probably the majority in many cases. And then there's also all the issues of privacy, data sovereignty, security, control, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, people are fundamentally starting from a private cloud base, it has to be strong and sort of pivot off of that into hybrid. And there's definitely examples out there of customers that go out, lines of business, obviously, shadow IT going out procuring the public side, but eventually it's got to come home when it's time to scale it and normalize it, right? So we're starting with the private, but I was kind of a cloud curmudgeon, kind of like Joe was talking about. The buzzword always kind of, or the promise of the unicorns always kind of bugged me as a server guy, but I've kind of accepted that it's reality now. But in ultimate fact, it's all about automation, right? So for us, the majority of what you're going to see in the enterprise cloud suite we're going to show you today is really tackling that automation challenge, right? Everything making sense so far? Okay. So, you know, automation is difficult because it requires that you have a process to automate. And so to the conversation that you guys were having around SDN, right, if you automate something that's broken, you just get to broken faster, right? So for a lot of our customers, it's really a challenge of first solving the organizational interlock, you know, and getting this mindset of defining infrastructure through policy, where everybody comes to the table, define what it is to be a certain type of infrastructure to support a certain type of application, and then instantiating that in the infrastructure. That's the technology that we bring that can help customers start to bring those silos together and get to the more of a common SLA versus a lot of separate SLA. So, you know, from the challenge side, I think our technology is really focused on trying to help them bridge that fundamental problem, which is to, you know, organize the processes and bring the teams together. So if you think about the components that you need, and we use this term hybrid-ready private cloud, but if you think about private cloud in and of itself, you obviously need to be able to manipulate your infrastructure, you know, provision it in an automated way. You need to have a self-service portal to make it cloudy, you know, kind of get beyond just the automation. In order to keep in a multi-tenant environment, you have to have the ability to do virtual containers on the networking side. A lot of what we're doing on the SDN front, ACI front. And then, you know, multi-hypervisor support is more than a nice to have. I think it's pretty much a must-have for most large organizations. And so with Enterprise Cloud Suite, we're taking, and you heard Pankaj earlier talk about what Cisco One is really about. It's about Cisco bringing together multiple software titles into logically oriented suites, right? And what we've done with Enterprise Cloud Suite is bring together all the pieces that we have in our data center portfolio that fulfill these different missions, you know, to build this hybrid cloud, right? So for infrastructure configuration and automation, that's UCS Director, and then supporting that, UCS Manager, what we do in Nexus. So it's this idea of API exposed control planes for infrastructure being automated through UCS Director. For the self-service catalog, it's our Prime Service catalog. For the containers, it's our virtual application containers, and that's a combination of, you know, our Nexus 1000V virtualized kind of network environment. And then obviously all the work that we're doing with our partners to make sure that we've got the integration with all the different hypervisors and cloud platform automation suites, right? So that's the essence of what we're doing with Enterprise Cloud Suite. So what I want to do is I'm going to turn it over to Song, because this is a stack-wise view of everything I just described, but there's some really cool things. I think in terms of the basic automation of the infrastructure, we're well ahead, right? We're there. With UCS Director, with what we can do with UCS Manager, what we can do with Nexus, the automation component for our infrastructure we've had in place for quite some time. Where I think the new news is, and kind of the stuff that might be more interesting for you guys, are some of the things that we're doing on the stack designer side, where we're allowing IT shops to support developers, you know, bring elements of middleware and different pieces together. So I'll turn it over to Song.
Thank you, Todd.
You bet.
All right. So let's just start from this picture. I'm more than happy to draw this, right? And I was following the conversation earlier on SDN. Very, very good, because the way I look at this, and just to describe the boxes on here, right? Let's just ignore the business aspect for now. This is the technical aspect. Here's the physical infrastructure components. UCS-based integrated infrastructure, multi-vendor compute, network storage, and virtualization. Here we layer on the virtual network services that enable you to offer these network containers, not only for really partitioning the tenants, but really even within the tenant, you can have multiple of these. And I'll actually start drawing why that's relevant, because there's another view of this, which is top-down, the application guys. And for them, like we mentioned earlier, even in the previous conversation, these boxes mean nothing, right? I want to build an application. I want to deploy an application. I want to clone it for tests. How do I get it done in 5 minutes like I could do with a VM? Because now I got multiple VMs connecting, and that virtual wiring is very difficult to do. But let's just say this solves that, and this layer, APIC and hybrid, APIC is basically a more advanced version of also offering virtual network services. And then hybrid cloud connectivity, providing not just Fabric Connect for your private cloud to connect to any of these public cloud resources so that they look like they're sitting inside your own firewall. So your secure connection that's established, your little part of server that you have on another public cloud vendor could look like it's your internal VMs. And then integrated infrastructure management, the converged infrastructure management that brings together the physical components in a virtualized manner as well as physical bare metal servers. Surface that, this is all automated, and surface that in the service catalog. Plus what we say stack designer, right? Allowing you really to look at the entire stack in a more graphical manner and put them together for your application teams to consume. I'm hoping that this view of the infrastructure stack that you can virtualize, automate from network to converged infrastructure up to a self-service portal is a reasonably familiar concept. If we have any comment or conversation in this direction, I'll be happy to talk about it. If not, I'll flip it the other way down then.
So pause there. Questions, reactions, before we kind of come in from the top down. Let's do it. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So from the top down, what we're saying is, again, starting from the bottom again, right? What we have here, network, and then infra, the converged infra. I cannot write. And then the self-service. For the app guy, we're saying, you guys brought up some very good point, right? How many eBays, how many Googles are there? And did they buy any out-of-box suite from anybody? Probably not. But another way of looking at it is a lot of IT organizations and a lot of enterprises are trying to be more like eBay and Google, looking at the data they have about customers, looking at the data about their product sales and how they're supporting their customers and say, do I have opportunity to monetize this? Do I have opportunity to provide better service to my customers? For example, they got this, it's an online travel booking site, for example. I know customers coming to my site, they're booking these things. But what are the areas where they're saying they want something and they can't find it and they leave the site? I'm not able to convert, or I realize that I got cruises and I got flights and I'm not able to connect the two together. Can I build something that potentially recommend them to hop over or even package solutions together? On the financial institution side, there's a similar story, right? I got these products, I got these products. If there's no law preventing me from selling across, can I now build another app that I can offer to consumers to start looking? And to do that, that means the guys up here are going to be essentially saying, I want to build an app. Okay, this is a very simple 3-tier app. Web, app server, and a database server. Assuming I have ways to get data in here. Just to get this, if you say this is all VM, I'm just prototyping. I'm talking about the app guy's picture. Easy, right? Okay, well, I need to connect these two. Start to get more difficult. And now I'm saying, well, okay, I need to think about the life cycle of these things. If just getting this environment to start a prototype takes me 3 months because I get into networking layer and the network guys say, what's the security requirement? I say, I don't know, I don't care. I'm just kicking around prototyping this thing. And if they cannot even get this project off the ground to try things, not going to happen. And so then this is innovation stillborn, right? I cannot build a new business. I cannot try the data, pulling it together. I cannot do anything. So, okay, well, project gets shelved because the moment for innovation is gone. Another startup has started, and then they got some data together, potentially even from your company, and built it. And then your company had to spend 3 times or 10 times, 100 times the money to actually go buy that startup. Reason why you're not able to innovate is the infrastructure not being able to fulfill that and deliver that. And what is it? How does our enterprise cloud enable an enterprise to innovate in this area to meet the need of the application team? This entire thing can be defined as an infrastructure template. Network container, and then you can converge infrastructure management allow you to define templatized VMs in this. At this point, you could now offer the entire thing without the app components in there, but with the right security setup. So now you're templatizing not just your VMs now, you're templatizing the entire infrastructure and offer that for any app team. You can set up in the service catalog the self-service provisioning capability to automate the delivery of this with role-based access control so that maybe a particular team only can request this and not everybody. Obviously, you don't, I mean, if this is getting pretty costly, you want it to be only offered to the team that has permission to. And you can set up chargeback or showback if you want to. And this infrastructure, certainly you can start with your private cloud. You can even bring in part of it on hybrid and some of your least public resources. So innovation can get started. Next step then is, okay, well, I got a dev environment working reasonably well, and okay, the developers take shortcut, right? This guy to this guy is, the connection is 10.2.2.1. I'm not a networking guy, so I'm just going to randomly pull numbers. You can say this is not real. It's not real. But in any case, I hard-coded this stuff. Now I want to test environment. Could I get one of these? Yes, I could. I can get another one. Essentially, you could clone one because this is enabled by VEX or ACI. Cloning one of these configurations, it doesn't matter of cloning by self-service. It doesn't mean that infrastructure guys is irrelevant, but it's just that you have pre-configured this. You have tested that when I say clone, I actually do create another one that looks exactly the same with the right set of firewalls and all that. In any case, so you can clone it, you can test it, and the application guy doesn't actually have to change any of their logics between the tiers. That's the ability to allow you to actually get going with it and innovate and get to the point. You may say now, okay, app, dev, test, prod is different, but then you can also, then there's a smaller migration path. And if you did it right, it's just slightly different setup, but some of the communications are very similar. The container is secure, meaning you could not have this guy talking to another container, and so on and so forth. I think you can imagine. You guys are the expert of what's happening here.
So for the folks assembled here, I mean, to what degree, I'll back up like one click, to what degree do you see IT organizations that you're familiar with or a part of having to directly compete with the speed and the efficiency of a public cloud service? Is that on a scale of 1 to 10, 0, I don't care, I'm going to go golfing, to 10 being it's life-threatening? 1 to 10.
I have a question about the fact that at least 2 big vendors, HDS and Microsoft, have released a few months ago big appliances like rack-sized appliances that are extension of clouds. Okay? So they are saying, don't worry about what there is in the box. It's my problem. You pay something, probably you pay something with the same mechanism, pay as you go, in-house, and you have an extension of a public cloud. So Azure, or for HDS is both Azure and vCloud. So if I was a CIO, for me, it's much better to choose a cloud like Microsoft because it gives me 100 services for Amazon if possible, and then bring the same kind of services in-house for development, for all kind of stuff. I don't care about ACI, I don't care about UCS, who cares? No, sorry, you make my day. But really, I want the worst hardware in this world because it's not my problem, it's your problem because you are the service provider. For me, Microsoft is the service provider at this point. So, and I get a bill at the end of the month with the private stuff because I want it there, because it's my stuff, because it's in development, because it's very mission critical data, blah, blah, blah. And I want a very transparent way to move all my stuff. And I don't care, really. And I don't want OpenStack because you can give me a credible OpenStack provider to do that. So how can you compete with this kind of proposition? So I don't care about all the templates, or I have already all the stuff on Microsoft Cloud and other services.
I think, you know, on the spectrum of buy, lease, or rent, that's probably falls in the lease category, right? Because, you know, Microsoft is going to extract, or whoever does this, right? The model that you described, the service provider is going to have to just extract some amount of margin because that infrastructure has a lifespan. Like you say, it's a very small part. Sure. Sure.
Probably less.
Sure. But it's effectively a managed service. So it's really a question of where do you want to invest your resource? You know, do you have the bandwidth and the capability to build it yourself, or are you willing to pay a premium to have it done for you by a service provider? So I think that's the same. It's the same question people had to ask themselves with fully managed hosting.
Yeah, but it's what you have said for a few years now with the VC, why you have to spend for infrastructure. We give you a break, a big break.
But we don't know.
But you put it there, it works, and we are okay with that. So I'm saying, okay, I have a break with the cloud into the break. And it's an extension of the public cloud, because the public cloud works much better. And they want the same benefit in-house on premises.
Maybe I can address one aspect of it, Todd, too, right? Some of the more recent, reasonably sized deals that we talk to large enterprises for is Amazon told them that, great, get a VM started up. No problem, right? 2 cents a minute, whatever. And then after a few months or a few years, they realize, holy, whatever. Why am I spending so much money running on Amazon? What the heck exactly am I running on there? And then they started actually coming back to private for some of the workloads because they're saying, I get billed. I can get billed as I use, except but now I'm losing control of what the heck is on there. And it's not because of security even, it's just the cost versus what is being run.
Amazon APIs. So how can you come back if you have all your infrastructure with Amazon APIs, with Amazon services, with NoSQL from Amazon, with blah, 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 blah. So it's very complex. It's not as easy as we...
It is not as easy, but there is, at one point strategically, if it's, your burn rate of unlimited burn rate on Amazon or another public cloud vendor, because ultimately they need to make money, right? There is that. So our intercloud allows you to do workload migration. And then on the API side, here's another aspect that I didn't get a chance to cover is as we provision the infrastructure for you, what we call Stack Designer, actually it provides you a graphical picture of this. And then we offer you components of applications such as MySQL or MongoDB. And then you can put it on there and provision the stack with the component on it. So if you have application code that's based on this infrastructure, that helps you to do migration. But the objective here is not so much of a migration, of course. We want to say if you're starting new too, you can get an infrastructure, not just an infrastructure stack provision, actually an application stack provision. And this Stack Designer is an application stack designer. Well, what we use in backend is Puppet. obviously extensible. So if you have written your own provisioning code for your own application components, it allows you to then consume. And I don't think private cloud and public cloud, the line of difference is that much bigger anymore. And this is where we're saying, with addressing the need, it's obviously, it's not thousands, but at the same time, you do have things that you want to automate yourself, and this framework allows you to do that.
Well, and your example is extremely valid, right? And for a customer that has an overwhelmingly Microsoft-centric environment that Azure serves well, that could very well be the right way to go. But there's not only 100 ways to skin the cat, there's like 100 cats in this problem for most customers. So I think one of the, obviously the biggest advantages on the, kind of private cloud going, because we're talking about kind of coming to the same hybrid place from two different directions. The advantage obviously going from a private cloud out to the public in that direction versus bringing the public in is that you're starting with a base that you control. And I think the other piece is you're not going to do everything all at once, right? You're going to automate where and when you have to or where you can. You're not going to do the entire environment, right? So when you are designing that private cloud, you can really design it to your needs versus, you bring in a package solution, it may not necessarily, may have things you don't need, may not have all the things you need. So I think it's really just, it's the classic question of a kind of a service versus a build to your own requirement.
I have a practical question towards the multi-vendor compute network storage virtualization part. Is this going to be a solution with coming from Cisco integrated stacks, or is this going to be a solution that can be implemented on any storage that is was it Cisco certified, or do they have to be Cisco validated designs, or is it going to be the vBlock FlexPod only type of things that there are? I mean, how flexible is this?
What options do you think?
Well, I'm thinking about Pure Storage and Nimble, for example, have their own stack solution today with some UCS servers, but it's not Cisco driven. It's alliance partner driven. Is this going to be a solution that is also alliance partner driven, or is it going to be Cisco driven?
I'd say the solutions you're referring to, I mean, they're driven maybe from a branding perspective, but if you look underneath at the actual control elements in that, it's most often UCS Director. So FlexPod, vSpecs, what we do with HDS, UCS Director is really the automation tool that creates those integrated infrastructures. And all the integration work that we're doing with UCS Director in those realms carries over here. So the answer is some of all the above, right? It's going to be our defined integrated infrastructures like the ones I just mentioned, but it's also going to be a la carte. UCS Director really kind of started outside of this fully packaged domain as an automation engine to pull together. I mean, when we acquired them, they already had done integration work with other server vendors, for example. So you can use some IBM and HP server functionality right inside UCS Director to this day. So I think the answer is it's going to be very open.
So that was a final question. Is like, if I'm a VAR and I want to create my own solution with any storage that I support, would that fit here as well?
Well, I mean, go ahead.
If I would want to run this on EqualLogic, and EqualLogic is not in any of your stacks today, would that be possible with this?
I think a conversation is to have is with the UCS Director, specific teams, and if it's
yeah, because the integration work has to be performed on a system by system basis.
So it's probably worth trying, because you started your example with Nimble and Pure. Can you step up from the microphone?
How are we on time, guys?
We're over.
We're over? Okay, we'll roll it up. Jim McHugh.
So, Jim McHugh, I'm going to be up here next anyway. So you started your question by leading towards UCS integrated infrastructure, which is compute, network, and storage access, right? And that was the way it was built from day one. And that's why Nimble and Pure can do the heavy lifting by themselves and actually do the integration, and we know that it's going to work. So that part of your question, the answer is yes. It would probably work, not a problem, because they're going to go do some of this work for them, and UCS Director will work, and everything will go fine. Then you threw in a different storage partner that hasn't done the heavy work.
Yes, that's the final question. How flexible is this? How far does it go?
So if they wanted to do the lifting, we have our strategic partners that we go to market with because we know through our channel partners and our customers that there's enough market size there and we're going to do it. That's a business decision. From a technology standpoint, a smart company like Nimble, smart company like Pure that wants to do the lifting, they know they're building a market segment that's going to start getting our attention. So that's why there's a line there. But I wanted to make sure that we didn't just say no or...
That's a good point. And we have a fully published open API. So a lot of our partners, that's how they start. In fact, that's how Cloupia really started, was taking our API for UCS and digging into it and doing the integration work and then coming to our teams and kind of doing the validation end of it. So.